Hello, thank you for stopping by. I'm going to talk to you today about selecting and preparing white pine needles for heritage white pine weaving. The first thing you need to do is make sure that what you have is an actual white pine. White pines are Pinus strobus. That's the Latin name. And how you know you have a white pine and not some other type of pine, let me pick this up really quick. The pine needles come in a bundle of 5. They're very slender. The trees are very distinctive. Each little batch that has a bundle that has a little nub on it, there's 5 needles. They're the only ones that have that. Preparing the needles is pretty straightforward. Selecting the needles is not. So I'm going to cover that really quickly first. So when you're selecting your white pine needles for this, the first thing I'd like to say, and please listen to me when I say this, if you are just wanting to make a basket and you think that's going to be something fun to try, I highly, highly recommend that you seek out a YouTube channel where they talk about coiled baskets. When you make a coiled basket, they use ponderosa pine needles. Ponderosa pine needles are around 10 inches long. It's a whole nother animal than trying to make a white pine basket. And if you're just starting out and you think you might want to just give it a try for, as I like to say, kicks and giggles, ponderosa pine needles are about 10 inches long and they're so much easier. And you can also buy them prepared. You can buy them, I know they have them on Etsy and other places. You can buy them dyed. You can buy them dyed and preserved. Everything's ready to go and you're just good to go. But anyway, back to white pine. So in order to make a heritage white pine basket, you need to find a tree that has a branch that has broken on the tree and the needles have turned brown like this on the tree. I have a bag here that I was able to source when I was out. And there's a couple things. So they have to dry on the tree and be brown like this, number 1. Number 2, you cannot use green needles. The reason why you cannot use green needles is because the green needles have a lot of resins and volatiles in them, and they will outgas, and even if you prepare the needles correctly, they're still going to shrink so much in the process of dyeing them, if you're going to dye them, and preparing the second stage of preparation. And also the waxing and baking process is going to cause them to shrink. And if you've already made a basket or a disc or a gourd out of them at that point, you're going to have a very weak product. So no green needles. The other thing is the needles can never touch the ground. My great-grandmother told me that the needles can never touch the ground because it gives them a bad spirit. I never really understood what she meant by that, but my educational history is actually natural history. And so I learned after the fact that when these needles touch on the ground, particularly if they lay on the ground for even a day, they pick up so much of the funguses and bacteria and things like that that are in the soil that you will never be able to reliably say that they're not going to decay really quickly. Again, if you want to just make a basket because you want to give it a try, you want to see what it's like, go for it. Because the thing is, the heritage white pine baskets are designed to last hundreds of years, and if they are made correctly and very carefully, they will. So, I think I covered that. Oh, the other thing I want to mention, it takes about 3 to 5 quarts of needles. This container right here is roughly a quart. It takes me about an hour to prepare a quart of needles. It's probably going to take you a little bit longer because I've been doing this a very long time. Not usually talking this much when I'm doing it, but it takes about an hour to prepare a quart of needles. It takes between 3 and 5 quarts of needles to do a basket, and roughly the same to do a disc. So I mentioned the making sure you have the right needles by making sure you've got 5 needles to a bundle. So each of these little bundles will have 5 needles. That's how you know it's a white pine. I gotta get down to one bundle again. So each bundle has 5 needles in it. Can't grab one. There you go. Here's a bundle, 5 needles. So what you want to do, I'm going to set these aside for a second and just show you how they come out. They're very brittle, okay? So you want to break off your section. These shorter needles that are on here, they're really You can use them, but particularly if you're just a beginner, I would advise against it because it's a frustrating enough project without adding an additional complicating factor. So break off this little nub here on the end, or cut it off, as the case may be. You want all those little nubs gone. What I like to do is grab them by the tip here and just pull off all the short needles. Those are just going to get discarded. And then you have your batch of needles. You want to line them up. Keep them lined up because they're going to need to stay lined up for your projects. They always get fed in, blunt in first when you're doing your weaving. And then they go into a container like that. Again, I would keep going until I have a quart. I like to do quarts because of how many it takes to make a basket. So once you have your quart, I use Ziploc bags. This is a very important step. You need to put your needles in a Ziploc bag, and they need to go in a freezer, preferably a deep freeze, for at least a week. Longer if you can do it, but a minimum a week. And I would say that's really pushing it, because I can't remember if I mentioned on this video or not, these needles are full of insects. They're full of spiders, spider eggs, weevils, all kinds of things. So if you can prepare your needles doing the preparation phase outside, it's a really good idea, because you will wind up with all kinds of spiders and bugs and stuff in your house. They like to really hide here at the base of where the needles are, right here. So once you've got your quart bag filled up and you have frozen that bag, and it's got let's just say a month to be on the safe side, because you've got to kill these insects that are in there. You really want to kill the insects, and you want to kill the eggs of the insects. So after you get your bag out of there, the next step in the preparation is you are going to have to boil these. They get boiled in water with vinegar, usually about a quarter cup of vinegar to about 2 pints of water. You boil them for 20 minutes. The vinegar helps prevent fungal growth. So you need to do that. If you are going to dye your needles, that's when you dye them. You dye them at the time that you're boiling them with the vinegar. Again, I've said before, what I use is RIT dye. I use RIT dye because that was a product that was common during actually it was before the Civil War, but it was commercialized after the Civil War, about around 1890, 1901, that really became commercialized under the name of RIT dye. I'm sorry for my ums. I apologize. So you want to cut these ends off again. Like I said, pinch down here. Remove all the ones that are just short. You just want to get rid of them. Make them flat as you can. Line them up like that. Make sure they're all facing the same way. Anyway, at the time that... Boy, there's a bug right there. See what I mean? Bug. They're coming out of this bag. Again, I need to work on my ums, don't I? Thank you very much for your indulgence on that. So what you want to do at the time that you are... There's a big spider nest right there, see? What you want to do when you are dyeing them is you would put the dye in at the time you're boiling the needles. And again, I use RIT dye. You follow the package instructions for that. But I use water, vinegar. Vinegar is a mordant in that case, and also salt. If I'm going to dye them, I put salt, about a tablespoon of salt in with the RIT dye, just to make sure that the needles take up the dye really nice and well. And I'm going to continue on with my filling up my quart bag. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section, and I will try to answer as best as I can. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you.